Why did you and your co-founder decide to name the company Vananam?
The motto of Vananam is basically, build in Bharat, build for Bharat, but build for the world. We are trying to create a series of businesses, trying to create wealth for all the stakeholders which are involved with us.
How is Vananam incorporating AI?
A lot of our tech is been written by AI. The fundamental task that people do is something that we do not do it manually anymore in Vananam.
How important is the semiconductor industry going to be for India?
We have moved out of the mechanical age, right? I think there is chips literally in everything that we use right now.
What was the generation just from the loyalty and the gift cards?
450 CR only from vouchers.
How important is finding an absolutely correct co-founder?
It's actually more complicated than getting married.
What is that X factor that an entrepreneur needs or a startup needs to be able to survive this cutthroat market?
From a village to a global conglomerate, the Vananam story is one of grit, determination, and the Indian entrepreneurial spirit that created a 1,000 crore business here from Bharat itself. Guys, join the co-founder of Vananam, Mahendra Rathod, and the Deputy COO, Joshua G, as they share their inspiring journey of building a successful business but without compromising on their core values. Discover their Desi way to scale a business and the power of believing in the Indian dream in our podcast, The Hot Seat. So, let's begin. Mahendra, welcome Joshua. Thank you so much for being here. How are you guys? How are you?
We are absolutely fine, fantastic. Nothing better as we speak.
Lovely. Joshua, how are you?
Really good. Happy to be here.
It's totally our pleasure to have you both here from Vananam at Caltech. We'll start with you, Mahendra. The first thing that I want to ask you, that is because the name sounds so fascinating and it's got a great ring to it. So just tell us, what is the meaning of Vananam? And why did you and your co-founder decide to name the company, which is now a conglomerate, as you guys call it, Vananam?
So Vananam means wealth in Sanskrit. Okay, and wealth basically has a very different connotation. Okay, there is something called money and there is something called wealth, right? So when we talk about money is very, very, it's like transactional, right? Money is basically money. But when it comes to wealth is basically also about meaning of life. It's about employment. It's about empowerment. It's about basically society. So what we try to do at Vananam is basically trying to create wealth for all the stakeholders which are involved with us. Who are the stakeholders? So the first stakeholder and the most important stakeholder is the employee. Okay. The second is basically our investor. Third is our client, right? And then, the society at large, the government, right? Our vendors, our partners. So all of these are our stakeholders. And what we want to do is basically, we want to make sure that we create wealth for all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. And hence, the name Vananam.
Lovely. Mahendra, I want to ask you, you mentioned the employees, the stakeholders, the clients, and in great ways, Vananam has changed their lives, impacted them. But there's, of course, a huge part of the crowd, a major part of our target audience also, who might not be knowing on a day-to-day basis what Vananam does. So if I have to ask you, Asan Bhasha mein, if you want to explain to a viewer, what is Vananam and what does it do?
Perfect. So see, Vananam, we are trying to create a series of businesses. अगर इसको इंग्लिश में बोले तो conglomerate, right? So conglomerate क्या होता है कि just to again simplify, let's say we have a lot of great companies in India, let's say like Reliance, Adani, right? Tata is a great name, right? These companies, they have created multiple businesses. These businesses are all conglomerates, right? And they what they do is basically they identify an area which is a scalable, profitable area, invest there, build those companies and take them global. So we aspire to be one of the conglomerates in India, right? Now, what does it mean to be a conglomerate? So we are not a typical. We never started as a typical startup where we said okay, we will build tech and then raise VC funds and then go to a Series A, Series B, Series D, etc., etc. We said, can we actually create scalable, profitable businesses? Even if these businesses are non-tech, even if these businesses are basically, as we call it, non-sexy businesses, Desi businesses. So, I mean, I was of the opinion, because I had an history of entrepreneurship. Keshav is from a Marwadi family, from a business family. So both of us came to a conclusion that we should actually build. And one by one, we started building businesses, right? So as we speak, we have, majorly 4 businesses. We started with a real estate business, right? Where we actually are into land aggregation, infrastructure development, etc. Mostly for the hospitality industry, right? Then we started airport retail, the transit retail business. The transit retail business is basically into providing retail for the captive crowd of the customers, or the travelers who are in the transit. Mostly at the airport, we will also be expanding it to, let's say, the metro stations or other places, right? So that was our another business. Then we started with rewards and loyalty, right? So I was fortunate enough to basically have 6 to 8 years of experience in the rewards and loyalty industry, understood the dynamics very well, and I was supported by, I'm still being supported by a very good team, just like Joshua and others, which I have. I have Yugam, I have Ibrahim, Dhruv, Rahul. They are all veterans of this industry, and we decided that, okay, let's start this business, because we know how to scale this business, and this can be a multi-billion dollar business in itself, right? Again, a very Desi, there is tech, but scalable, profitable business, right? Then we have something into import, export, and trading also, right? That is something which we are trying to do. Finally, we are coming up with a flagship project, which I'll talk about more in detail later. Is Giorvan. So we are basically trying to change the entire premium luxury segment in India. I mean, we believe that there is a segment which is actually craving for premium luxury, like Louis Vuittons of the world, etc. in India, right? So why can't we create an indigenous brand which is for the world, right? So the motto of Vananam is basically build in Bharat, build for Bharat, but build for the world, right? So that is what we aspire to.
Joshua, I want to ask you, the initial journey of Vananam, we heard you joined, if I'm not wrong, a year and 2-3 months back. Yeah. So how did Vananam happen for you?
I think it is a very simple thing. I think going back to my first boss, right? I think...
Where was that? Which company was that?
So it was called Sellerworks. It was acquired by Capillary Technologies, and we were in the era of the e-commerce boom, right? And so that time e-commerce was just picking up, right? And you had almost like 12, 13 marketplaces that time. You had so many people that time, right? That's when we met, and we started... we had a tech product which was doing all the inventory management, warehouse management, and all of those things across a lot of platforms. And so I think that's where we worked together for about a year and a half. And after that, I think when obviously that time was the product was a little advanced for its time. And so it did not really pick up that well, and people are not ready. And so just to give you some example, that time is when most of the companies, including the likes of the Arvind groups and all of them, were getting listed online, right? And that's something that we all did. And so then after that, the business was not doing that great at that point of time. So then obviously Capillary acquired the entire thing, and I was very much into startups. And Mahendra also was like, no, I'm not getting into a bigger company again. And he was like, I'm going to a startup. Then I found another job, and Mahendra told me, I'm like, no, come with me. So then again, we worked in the second company together. And that was about 2.5 years I worked there. Then we separated ways. When I started my own company, it was into CRM, and we started my own CRM services company. So I was very fascinated by CRMs, marketing automations that time, and I started my own journey there.
Some of the viewers who might not know the full form and the definition, if Asan Bhasha mein you can tell what CRM is.
So it's called Customer Relationship Management Software, and most of you get very targeted ads. Right? You would have seen something, you would have bought something, and then something, you would have got an advertisement on that entire thing. And these are not on Insta or anything. It's basically an emailer you'll get saying that, hey, you've signed up with us, and like, why don't you do this thing? Or you leave something in the cart, right? And you go back, and then there's an email saying that you have left this in the cart. I'll give you 20% additional discount, right? And so those mails, those WhatsApps you get right now, those SMSs you get right now are from CRMs and marketing automations.
Sometimes I would do this because I buy whey protein every month or every 2 months. I would just go put it in my cart and then go and leave it. And then half an hour later, I would get the SMS that use this and you'll get 10% extra discount.
So that was something that we were into services, and I was designing the services for a lot of companies. And while I was building out my CRM, I was consulting for other companies, and I was like installing CRMs in their systems and automating their processes for this entire thing. And then after that, we didn't work together for almost 5 years after that. And then after that, he started Vananam, I know that. And he was like, but it was always an agreement. I'm like, I will start something, I will give you a call, come join. Right? And this was back in our first job itself. And that time I was like, obviously, I was very junior to him. And then after that, those words were very true. He's like, I'm building a tech business right now. Product is required, build a team and do everything what you're good at. That's all he told. I think I'm like, the entire conversation took about 10 minutes. Wow. Right? I'm like, yeah, I'll join.
When you guys were generating capital and generating funds, you guys didn't really go the way a lot of other companies, which are now huge companies, say 1,000 crore companies, would do. Because if I'm not wrong, there was no VC. There was no VC capital.
So as I said, when we were initially raising funds, we thought, we were not very clear on the regulation front, okay, in this market. Because as per the corporate law, let's say if you reach out to more people, then the private placement becomes a public placement, right? So then SEBI guidelines would actually come in and all that. So we were not clear. At the same time, we didn't find it fascinating. We didn't find it, we didn't expect this to grow a lot. Okay, so we said, कि यार ये ठीक है business है, but we should do something which is more scalable and profitable, right? As I rightly said. And when the opportunity of real estate came, we said, okay, let's try. ठीक है, तो वहाँ से start किया. Then we got another opportunity to start the airport retail business, and this all through our connections, right? So that we started, and we said, okay, यार airport retail business we can build a $10 billion business, right? So real estate, anyways, right? It can be a huge business, right, if done correctly. Then rewards and loyalty came. So reward and loyalty again. For example, just to give an idea, the value of gift cards which is sold in US every year is close to $400 billion.
$400 billion?
Yes. Okay. In Europe, it is equally around $300-400 billion. In India, it is only $4 billion, roughly. Okay, there are no published reports, but depending on the competition analysis, etc., which I have done, 4 billion versus 400 billion, right?
That's 1%. Population हमारी इतनी ज़्यादा है, लेकिन ये इतना difference क्यों है in that industry itself?
So if you look at gift cards, the vouchers which I talked about, right, and that is our primary business in reward store. Gift card is basically a customer acquisition tool by the brands. So B2C brands use this to acquire customers. So let's say if I give you a voucher, you will definitely go to that brand only and then use. For example, let's say if I give you a pizza outlet voucher, you will go to that pizza outlet and use it, right? So there is a customer hook, okay? And outside in let's say developed countries, gift cards have been used for a lot of gifting. Okay, gifting as in, there is a B2B gifting, for example, an employer gifting to the employee, employer gifting to the channel partners, okay, and there is a lot of B2C gifting. For example, you gifting to your friends or your brother, right? So that gifting has always been digitized there, right? And hence this uptake. They have the Black Friday sales and the New Year sales, right? Where there are a lot of gifting happens. You have Thanksgivings, etc., etc. In India, the gifting has always been physical, right? So अभी जैसे मेरे बच्चे के birthday पे, surprisingly the toy which we got this time was the toy we gave to someone else 3 years back.
Same gift तो नहीं था.
Same gift.
क्या बात कर, same डब्बा.
Rotate हो गया. Right. So India में वो culture है physical gifting का. That physical gifting, now I have seen people moving towards the digital gifting. So that boom is required. And जैसे ही वो click हुआ, then we are talking about probably more than $400-500 billion business.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the generation just from the loyalty and the gift cards in the last financial year, if you can tell us, for Vananam?
Generation, I think it was 450 CR, only from vouchers.
Wow. In India?
In India.
Lovely. Are there plans to take it global as well?
Obviously, we in fact we've started. We have entity in Dubai where we do Dubai content. Then we have an entity in US where we mostly do US content, right? And we are trying to set up something in Europe as well, right? So this is international entities also we already set up, right? So we will be scaling those up as well.
How is Vananam incorporating AI as far as day-to-day work is concerned, as far as deliverables are concerned? How is?
I think we use AI at every step, right? Right from drafting an agreement, right from let's say writing the basic of content or even it's a customer support reply right now, right? We have set our precedent saying that make sure it's the best way that's possible, right? So to avoid all those basic mistakes that people have been making over a lot of period, I've worked with a lot of people by now, and I've worked close to 250, 350 people easily in the last even 4-5 years, right? A lot of fundamental mistakes, the fundamental task that people do is something that we do not do it manually anymore in Vananam, right? And AI, I think a testimony for the entire thing is basically a lot of tech is been written by AI, right? We use it heavily with us, but obviously there's with moderation always, right? But yes, we use it in every process: ops, customer support, tech, content writing, the website content, the SEOs, everything. We use it heavily with us. So it is part of our day to day right now. So
You've been working in the tech industry for a fair amount of time now. If one has to ask you, what are some of the factors of AI which are most largely misunderstood?
job loss is something which is largely misunderstood, right? Uh, Skills is something that people need to really sharpen. But what if a lot of the skills, the entry level skills, which is something that AI can take care of, it's just replaced and people don't have to learn that anymore? I think 4 years ago, when I was working in my previous company, there was an SEO specialist, right? And that's a very typical thing I can tell you. SEO specialist today is an AI, right? It can give me more number of keywords, what has to be used, what content has to be there, everything within no time, right?
Which previously search engine optimization, which previously there used to be actual professionals doing that work.
Yes,
It's now
absolutely.
being doing better by
Yes,
AI.
absolutely. And another testimony for the entire thing is when techies had doubt, previously they used to go to a platform called Stack Overflow.
What would that do?
So Stack Overflow is basically you have a doubt on tech, a piece of code that you do not know how to crack, right? A complex piece of code, for example. Now, Stack Overflow is become redundant today because ChatGPT or let's say the co-pilots and everything have taken over. You just give it the information, it gives you what exactly the code has to be. Now nobody goes to Stack Overflow, right? And Stack Overflow was the most go-to tool for all developers. Today it's not, right? Today the first tool to go-to tool for ChatGPT, right? And that's how it's revolutionizing the entire thing.
Joshua, I want to ask you, say 14 months back, 15 months back, you were not a part of Vananam. But you knew of the journey, you knew of the growth that is happening. If one has to ask you from a third party perspective, if one has to ask you to explain the incredible success that Vananam has had, the 1,000 crore story that it has had, in 2 to 3 lines, what would that be?
I think it's more to do like one thing is the being at the right place at the right time, and that is definitely there. And I think the dedication and the hard work which went into it, right? I think two extremely smart people who are doing all of these things, and both have me. I work with the two of them, right? And both have extremely polarizing skills, right? One is extremely calm, one is extremely aggressive, and between these two folks, I get pulled, right? Most of the times, right? I think there's a tug of war between both of them, and then I'm stuck right in between them, right? And I think it was just clicked, right? And seeing opportunities, I think most people do not see opportunities, right? And if you pick anybody in Bangalore and they say that, okay, hey, I see a potential business on this thing and it's not tech, I don't think so many people will take it up, right? And I was definitely one of them 15 months ago, right? I would have been like, what is there? I don't want to do this thing, right? But today, I think one thing which we've not spoken about as an opportunity, right? We saw a great opportunity in one of the places called Chikbalapur, and where the Isha Foundation's the thing is there, and we opened a restaurant over there. It's called Kalyani Uta, and it just boomed, right? And that's a business opportunity, and that has nothing to do with tech. It has nothing to do with anything. It is basically idli and dosa. And what was new about the entire thing, and these folks were able to see that particular thing, and that's exactly what's important.
Mahendra, Joshua, this question I want to ask both of you, and this question stays in my mind all the time. India has always had incredible talent. पहले यहाँ पढ़ते थे, pass out करते थे, बाहर जाके they used to work and make other companies grow. In the last decade, we have seen an incredible digital boom, the startup culture boom that has happened, the AI boom that has happened, all of this in the last decade, decade and a half. What do you think caused this paradigm shift?
I think for me it is these are three things. A, the government policies, favorable government policies, right? B, the hope and the success. For example, let's say there are a lot of successful startup founders, who made it very big, right? So that is point number two. So this success actually, success actually begets success, right? So that hope and three, basically because of the information age, a lot of things which are available outside have now started being available here, right? So because of these three factors, the talent is staying here and talent is now wanting to do something in India.
Joshua, same question to you. What do you think caused the change in the last 10, 15 years?
I think largely to do with the startup boom, right? And what I mean by the startup boom was basically before 10 years, for 15 years, right? It was all service industries and all of those things. And we never had a product industry as such in India, right? There were very few companies like Zoho was doing something and all of those companies are doing something. But this was not picking up. But we look at the outside world, they were all product companies. It was like Salesforce, it was like Google, and then all of the other companies, right? And these were really picking up, and people wanted to be part of that culture. But when that culture came to India, right? India was not ready at that point of time, but over a period of time, due to the government, then after that, there are a lot of changes happening in the policies, the way things are moving. And today, the semiconductor talk in the entire country is so large, and I think we have signed the 6th or 7th deal already as of yesterday, right? So yes, this is going to retain the talent in India. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. The semiconductor is quite literally the future that is going to happen. The summit is happening in New Delhi as we speak. Yesterday was, if I'm not wrong, day one, day two. What's your take on this? How important is the semiconductor industry going to be for India?
Yeah, I think we have moved out of the mechanical age, right? I think there is chips literally in everything that we use right now, right? From the earphones that we use, the cars that we drive, the phones that we use. That was not there probably 15, 20 years ago. It was there only in the laptops we talked about. Today you have a switchboard with a search chip, right? Which is controlling the entire thing, right? I think that's a big shift. And having the local manufacturing in India is just going to cause a huge talent to be retained within India, because there's going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities. And that thing which was missing in India probably 15 years ago is there in India right now.
When you started your career, you mentioned that e-commerce was the in thing, and there were so many e-commerce platforms. Not all survived. Not all of them survived. My question is, so many startups get built as well, get created. Not all are able to survive. Mahendra, what is that X factor that an entrepreneur needs or a startup needs to be able to survive this cutthroat market?
So there are a couple of characteristics, right? The first and the most important part is the team. So when I say team, it starts with the founders itself, right? The founder has to have the synergies. The founder has to have that, compatibility, right? Second is the first or the second team which they build, and the subsequent team. So team is very, very crucial, right? Product market fit, right? I mean, it has to be at the right time, at the right place. Otherwise you might not succeed, right? The way you execute it is very, very important, right? So a lot of times you might have a great idea, great technology, but if you don't know how to execute, or if you do not execute well, that is where the operations come. Then also you might fail, right? And the fourth is basically luck. Okay, when we are successful, we say it is because of me, but actually luck plays a huge role, right? So I think these are the four things which are very, very crucial for a successful start.
So is the phrase, the cliche, being at the right place at the right time, it's very important for an entrepreneurial journey also?
Very, very important for not the entrepreneur, everyone in life.
Yeah.
Lovely. You mentioned co-founder. When you and Keshav got each other, found each other, and then Vananam started, how important is finding an absolutely correct co-founder? And except for work ethos and work vision, what are some of the other things which are very important to find?
See, basically, when you find a co-founder, no, it is actually more complicated than getting married.
We have found our teaser cut.
Why? Because marriage is definitely very complicated. I'm not saying that, right? But marriage you can still basically get out of. when you start
can.
when you start a business, okay, it's very very difficult to get out, right? Especially when you are growing. If you fail, it's easy, but if you're growing, it is very very tough to get out, right? You have to make sure that you are in that journey. You have to make sure that whatever promises you have done to your employees, your investors, your customers are fulfilled, right? Definitely, I mean, after a point, there are people coming, leaving, etc. But for a founder, it's very, very difficult to get out of the situation, right? Third is why it is more complicated than marriage is because a founder speaks to his or her founder, more time than the wife. You're constantly on the call, constantly meeting, right? You actually speak around 8 to 10 hours in a day, right? It has to be like that.
Does that sometimes cause complications at home? Are there complaints at home that you talk to your co-founder more than you talk to me?
Absolutely, a lot of times, In fact, I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, I have three co-founders in three different companies. So you can understand my pain. And my wife gets frustrated. But I had a mentor who'd always told me that, do not judge the work-life balance by the time you give. Judge by the quality of time you give. Which means if I go and give 1 hour to my wife and my kid, it has to be that quality 1 hour. In that 1 hour, I should not be, watching TV or, messing with my phone or, checking my emails. That 1 hour should be for them. I think that is good enough than, giving 8 hours where you are actually fiddling around with phone or doing something, which is not for the relationship, right? So I think it creates a lot of issues. Sometimes, you have marriages, functions, family functions, you're not able to go there. Okay, I mean, because you have to be at your startup, right? So it creates rifts, right? But if you have the understanding people around you, then definitely, it's a very big boon. So,
Amongst many of the very interesting things that Vananam is doing, the forthcoming project that is coming is Giorvan. Tell us in short a little about Giorvan.
so Giorvan, we are trying to create a world-class brand, a premium luxury brand of apparel in India. Okay, using the textile technologies at the same time going to our indigenous roots, right? So Keshav's family has been in textiles for last 60 years. Okay, so we will be basically using some of the techniques which were used earlier and also combined it with modern textile technologies and create a brand which is authentic Indian, but at the same time which is globally accepted.
Why is it that when it comes to textile and when it comes to designer brands, no Indian brand up until now has been able to make it that huge and become a name like, say, a Dolce & Gabbana or a Versace or something like that?
I think it is also because mostly the people who were rich in India or NRIs, they brought all of these names here, right? For example, when your NRI uncle or auntie will come, they will say, "Oh, this is Nike shoes." If you remember 20 years back, हम लोग सोचते थे Nike shoes क्या होता है, right? So all the brands and the stories, news, etc. has come from out. Okay, and these countries are also developed. They have a lot of lead, lot of branding, etc. etc. So हमेशा वहाँ से आया. अभी लेकिन इंडिया में भी indigenous brands बनेंगे. There is a huge potential, right? India has 1.4 billion population, right? Even it, let's say, top 5% population is with good disposable income, that is still bigger than a lot of countries' population. So इंडिया में वो opportunity चाहिए और वो एक बहुत बड़ा स्पेस है जो खुलेगा. उसकी वजह से क्या होगा कि वी विल एक्चुअली बी एबल टू क्रिएट ब्रांड्स विच आर नॉट जस्ट एक्सेप्टेबल इन इंडिया, बट द पीपल हु विल बी वर्किंग इन इंडिया, द फॉरेनर्स, विल गो टू देयर होम एंड से यार ये इंडिया से लेकर आया.
क्या बात. Fingers crossed, very soon, very soon. You mentioned the population. एक बात थी जो आपने एकदम स्टार्टिंग में कही थी while we were talking about the reward points and the loyalty structures, where you said that the business in US was, what was the amount?
400 billion.
400 billion. In UK it was?
Again, somewhere around 400 billion.
Somewhere the similar. And in India it was?
4 billion.
Because the population is already there. Lovely. This is something जो हम सोशल मीडिया पे मीम्स से लेके बैठ के डिस्कस करते हैं, तब भी वी हैव डिस्कस दिस दैट प्रीवियसली, से फॉर जीपे फॉर एग्जांपल, दैट द गिफ्ट कार्ड्स दैट वी वुड गेट वुड बी 7 rupees, 3 rupees, and that simple 2 rupee would give us joy कि भाई स्क्रैच किया 2 रुपए मिले. एंड देयर इज प्रॉपर डिस्कोर्स एंड डिसअपॉइंटमेंट कि आजकल वो 2 रुपए, 7 रुपए, 3 रुपए और नहीं मिलते. इज दैट समथिंग दैट इन द कॉन्फ्रेंस रूम Varanam's team has discussed?
Absolutely. In fact, we are starting with something called an offers store. Offer store is exactly going to be like that. For example, we will have offers which will have a good perceived value. Let's say in a brand, I will give you 100 rupees off or at 10 rupees. Okay, so these offers we will put, and these will be global offers. Okay, so we are trying to create a super app for the users, end users. For example, if you are an employee, okay, you will come to my point, my system to purchase any kind of voucher, redeem any kind of voucher, or you will see, acha yaar, I want to buy something from Zomato. Can I go to, let's say, the offer store and see what kind of offers are available in Zomato?
जैसे लोग सिंपल तरीके से करते हैं कि कहीं खरीद, जैसे मैं वे प्रोटीन खरीदना चाह रहा हूं तो मैं कभी कभी गूगल पे जाके साइट्रोन कूपन कोड, तो दैट इज समथिंग दे कैन डू.
So, but this will be intranet, and these offers will be exclusive, which will not be available outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And not, it won't be vague like somebody just typing on Google.
Yes. So that means you will have your own access, okay, your company access, company email address, and then when you log in, it will be an app also in near future. So you want to buy whey protein, you will say, यार एक बार रिवॉर्ड स्टोर के ऑफर स्टोर में जाके देखता हूँ वे प्रोटीन में ऑफर है कि नहीं. Then you click there, you get a code, you put that code into the website, you get the wave.
And it's a legit code, not a vague code जो कभी-कभी Google पे आता है.
ये legit codes.
We are almost towards the end of the podcast. We want to ask a few questions left. When we put out on our social media that we'll be doing a podcast, we'll be doing Shooting Caltech with you guys from Vananam. One of the very repeating questions that we got is Vananam hiring? तो चलिए मैंने पूछ लिया आपको, is Vananam hiring?
We are always hiring. Okay, as I said, we are a cricket team, so we are always looking for good talent. Okay, we are looking at talent for every position, right? So we want openers also, we want mid-level batsmen also, we want all-rounders also, and we want bowlers also, right?
Correct.
So we are always looking.
Bowlers win tournaments. चलिए, what kind of qualities do you look for when you are hiring new talent at Vananam?
So the first is basically the skills, right? Skills is extremely important. Yes, if there is a little deficiency skill which we can train, that is still acceptable. But another important is actually the will. What is the nature of the person? Okay, how hungry or basically how I would say hardworking that person is, right? Whether that person want to really achieve something in their lives. We are looking for those kind of people. Okay, because great teams build great organizations. Right. Okay, so we want great people.
Lovely, lovely. Second last question of the podcast, Joshua. If I have to ask you, a young engineer, or doesn't have to be an engineer, tech enthusiast, wants to make a career for themselves, say pretty much follow the same path, pass out, do a job, get into a good position, and then start something of their own. What would be an advice from your side to a young Indian like that?
I think traditionally what people, even today, I've spoken to a lot of college kids right now, and they come out with the same mentality what I was told to me back then, right? I think one thing which I would like to tell them, figure out there are many horizons, right? A lot of roles are there in the company. It's not just very specific to software engineering anymore. Even a lot of roles which is coming out of the companies right now are like sales, ops, analytics, product management. There are many roles. Explore these avenues and find your niche. And once you find your niche, make that niche not the only skill that you have. Explore other horizons as well. And you need to actually have, in these days especially, I think being a generalist is very important, because a specialist today may not be a specialist tomorrow, right? But a generalist today will always be a generalist ever, right? And then figure out what is that which actually excites you and gives you that kick. And then try to do something around that. And that's exactly what I would tell everyone, saying that, okay, just find your niche, expand your horizon, learn other skills from the other aspects as well, and then get into that entire thing as a whole.
Last question of the podcast, Mahendra, to you. You said in a recent chat somewhere that the next 30 years will be India's years. Your co-partner, your co-founder, who likes to call Bharat, he also agreed with you. Next 30 years will be India's years, if you can elaborate.
So I truly believe that, okay, next 30 years are going to be Bharat's years, okay. Why? Because of multiple factors. To just name a couple of them, right? So the manpower which India has, right? Now this manpower is well connected because, the mobile penetration, the internet penetration, right? They are educated, okay. Education rates are higher, right? They are fast learners. They are hungry. they want to do something, right? So we have an aspiring population. Second reason, we have a young population. If you do a histogram of, let's say, the average age of countries, India's average is, I think, around 28 years, right? And whereas China is around 43, 44, which means we are a young country. Okay, young country which wants to do something, which has manpower capability. Plus, the third is government policies, right? We've seen right from 1991, we've seen a lot of reforms which are happening in the industry, right? While India started as a socialist country, we are, now somewhere in between socialist and a capitalist country, right? And this model, if done rightly, will definitely make sure that we have very, very good policies which is beneficial for the business owners, as well as people who are working on these businesses and the population at large, right? So these are two factors which I believe will definitely kind of take us through. The next 30 years will be the golden years of India.
What an answer. And we definitely hope that the next 30 years will be India's years in the world, and Vananam will be somewhere right in front, paving that forward as well. Mahendra, thank you so much. Joshua, thank you so much for talking to us. We definitely hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast. Do write in the comments how you found it. And of course, for more such podcasts just like this, keep watching AIM Media. This is me, your friend Korak. See you in the next one.